Why we traveled here? I guess it was the diversity of unknown religions. Or maybe the stunning nature. Maybe because of the smell of the ocean. Or the centuries-old culture. Or perhaps the breathtaking volcanoes. Ancient monuments that impress with their beauty and danger. An untamed nature that makes you feel tiny in comparison. But all these impressions were just a small part of our journey through a country that has so much more to offer. This is our journey from Java to Bali. 12 days before, I looked around the room while I prepare my backpack for the next adventure. In a few days, we were sitting in an airplane and flying to the other side of the world. This will be our first trip to Asia in one of the most famous and diverse countries on Earth. Our excitement is huge. Also because of the contrast between this country and my home country, Germany. What will the locals and food be like? What will it be like to ride a scooter there? Will the differences be big? We did a lot of research and tried to prepare ourselves as good we could. After all these preparations, we were suddenly there, standing at the edge of the largest acid barrel of the world. The Ichen crater was one of our destinations at Java, the first island we visited during our stay at Indonesia. Our journey starts with a train ride from the capital Jakarta to the first city, Jakarta. During our journey through Java, we used the train 2 more times, each time in a different price range. Accordingly, our experiences were different. We bought the tickets in advance and the trains were always on time. In the end, we saved a lot of time while traveling through the island and always arrived in the new places well rested. When we arrived at Jakarta, our first days there looked something like this. We went to the street market, discovered the most diverse cuisines, tried the food there, met friendly people and had a good time. At the beginning of our trip, we first explored the largest Buddhist temple in the world, called Borobudur. In addition to the countless statues of Buddha, our guide explained to us the various stories that were on the walls of the temple. Borobudur is a 3-tiered pyramid with several bells called stupas on the top level. We were impressed by this massive structure and the religious significance behind it. From our guide's stories, we also got a sense of how important this temple is still today for the locals. A few kilometers further in the middle of a forest, we discovered Gereya Ayam, an interfaith prayer house that resembles a chicken. Before we left Jakarta, we visited the Prambanan temple one day later, the largest Hindu temple complex on Southeast Asia. We noticed the many tall tapering towers. Each one was heavily decorated with stories of the religion on the walls. The many temples were each dedicated to a Hindu god, and we were impressed by their diversity.
approaching platform 1. Please stand clear of the edge of the platform.
Our next train ride took us to the city of Malang, which is known for the colorful village of Yudipan. The locals call the area Kampung Warna-Warni, which translates as the village of many colors. Every single house has a different color. Even if the area is very poor, the diversity and creativity prevails, and that can be felt on every corner. Next to the colorful village is the blue village, which is in no way inferior to its neighbor. We didn't have much time to linger though. We set off for the next highlight of Java. We are talking about Tumpak Sewu, a crater in the middle of the rainforest where dozens of waterfalls fall in. We first observed this natural phenomenon from far above before climbing the countless stairs into the crater. In the crater itself, the falling water created steam, which made the whole atmosphere seem unreal and led to beautiful photos and videos. Tumpak Sewu showed us how beautiful nature can be, even when it's already disappearing. Nature is not only beautiful, it can be very dangerous too. The tour to Mount Bromo, an active volcano, showed us this. Our guide picked us up around midday, and we finally drove to the Bromo National Park in a jeep. During this journey, we could already see from afar the volcanoes Bromo and Semeru behind it. Their true size and majestic appearance only became apparent when we stood in front of them and walked to the crater. After we walked up a few stairs again, the entire crater of the volcano was finally revealed, and with it the many gases that were being emitted from it. In addition to this breathtaking scenery, the smell and sounds of the volcano reminded us how small we are in comparison to it and how dangerous nature can be. On the way to the viewpoint, we stopped in the sandy desert for a few photos and videos with the jeep and the impressive Mount Bromo in the background, which was shrouded in a magical mist at this time. At the end of the tour, our guide finally presented us the sunset at Mount Bromo from the lovely viewpoint. Completely alone, we experienced one of the most beautiful sunsets in our lives. No matter where we looked, an epic landscape stretched out on every side, and the volcanoes changed their colors in every minute, until the sun finally set. However, Mount Bromo wasn't the last volcano we saw. We experienced another national phenomenon a few days later in Banjuwangi, when we stood on the edge of the turquoise crater lake of the Ichen volcano. Before that, we took the train to the easternmost part of the island for the last time. The following night, we set off for the volcano at midnight. When we got there, we had to walk up the volcano for 2 hours in total darkness. The impressive volcanic landscape only became visible when the sun rose. Like the Mount Bromo before, we had a spectacular view of the turquoise crater lake with the rising sulfur gases at the edge. In the background there was a sea of clouds, which ultimately made this tour to an absolute highlight. After the descent, we continued our way to the harbor. After we bought a ticket in the supermarket at the Ketapang ferry port, we took the next ferry to Bali. After just an hour, we reached the next island on our round trip. The impressions we experienced there will remain in our minds forever. We reached our first accommodation after a 3-hour drive, which took us from the west of the island to the north of Bali, to Buleleng. In the following days, we spent the night in a safari tent at Pelaga Eco Park, on a hill with a view of the rainforest. The nature with its plants and animals, the sounds and the smells were completely different to those on Java, but still beautiful. In order to be able to move around the island independently, we organized a scooter. We used this Honda Scoopy to explore the northern part of the island. This part is known for its beautiful, untouched nature and the countless temples. The Pura Uluan Danu Tambingan temple, for example, is not impressive because of its size, but rather because of its location. The walls and gates of the temple are partly heavily weathered and overgrown with moss, which gives the complex a mystical touch. The water temple Pura Uluan Danu Bratan is also located in a picturesque setting. The rising mist gives this temple a mystical touch alongside the beautiful natural surroundings of the lake. The Hindu influence was noticeable at all times. In addition to the many temples, we visited some rice terraces, which we consider to be one of the most beautiful places of Bali. At the rice terraces of Jatiluvi, an incredible natural landscape of rice, hills and jungle awaited us. No matter where we looked, we could see rice fields in every direction, where white and red rice was grown by local farmers. But we only discovered the true beauty of them when we saw the field from above. The same applies to the rice terraces of Tegalalang near Ubud. Here we found a gorge with rice fields on both sides and lines with heavenly palm trees. In between this, we kept finding locals who were walking the fields by hand. Behind every bend and after every step, a new, breathtaking view of the rice fields awaited us. Nature in Bali showed itself at its most beautiful here. The lush, deep green rice terraces will stay in our memories for a long time. Before we explored the rice terraces, we drove first from the north of the island to the culinary center of Bali, to Ubud. After an hour, we reached our destination, but before we walked around the area, we stocked up on some Indonesian food. From there, we walked to the various streets, had a coffee in a rice field, and a stopover at the beach, where we ate a delicious bowl while watching the waves in front of us. We noticed that the religion is deeply rooted here too. At the time of our stay, children ran from temple to temple with instruments and dressed as pigs to collect some money for an upcoming festival. Next, we went to the Ubud art market, where we saw sarongs in a big variety of colors and a wide variety of works of art. Afterwards, we visited a food market to buy some food for a cooking class. A guide explained us the many different typical fruits and traditions at the market and introduced us to the locals. After that, we went to the Pemulan cooking school, where we cooked a multi-course traditional meal. The last ingredients we picked from their local garden. Then we started cooking under the guidance of a chef. In the end, we created a super delicious and traditional dish and met some kind new people. As already mentioned, Hinduism is deeply rooted in Bali. This is also reflected in the island's landmark, a 120-meter high image of the deity Vishnu. We became aware of this again at a traditional Kesha performance on a hill in the south of the island. While the waves crashed against the cliffs and the sun was setting, 50 screaming men performed the Kechak dance. The calls are performed with different hand movements at varying tempos. To the accompaniment of this singing, a story of the rescue of a princess is reenacted with the participation of various gods. But these were not the only gods we saw in Bali. The monkey forest Ubud is home to over 1,260 long-tailed macaques, who are considered sacred by the local Balinese people. We were fascinated by the way the monkeys interacted and lived with each other. They live in families and protect the little ones. They looked after each other and shared their food. Their climbing skills impressed us every time when we saw them in the trees. Their behavior was very similar to that of us humans, so a certain ancestry cannot be denied. Visiting their home was another highlight of our trip through Indonesia. For the last place we visited, we took a speedboat from Bali to Nusa Penida. With the new island, we also organized a new scooter. This time, we used a Honda Forza to explore Nusa Penida. On the many different beaches, we discovered first the typical traditional fishing boats with their struts on the left and the right side. Afterwards, we drove to the base of Angel's Billabong and Broken Beach, where we were able to capture the waves and mighty cliffs with our drone. Above all, the shape of Broken Beach is most beautiful from the bird-eye view.
A deal of matchless value. I was always quick to admit.
We stayed there until the sun slowly set, before visiting one of the island's two main attractions on the next day, the Killing King Beach. Majestic green cliffs in the shape of a dinosaur that rise up out of the water. Following this, we went to Crystal Bay Beach, where we drank coconuts to the sound of the waves and enjoyed the view of the fishing boats on the horizon. Sometimes we went in to swim and enjoy the salty warm water. At the end of our trip, we visited the Diamond Beach. As the name suggests, a diamond-like rock rises out of the ocean in front of picturesque cliffs and a green beach. This view makes the end of our round trip through Indonesia. On October 11th, we took the speedboat again to go back to Bali. Our 3-week trip ended when we crossed the ocean for a last time. We thought about the different ways we had traveled in the last weeks. We thought about the many people, the locals of Indonesia, that we met and got to know over these weeks, the hospitality and open nature of these people. When we arrived at Bali, we got into a taxi to go to the airport. In the taxi, we thought about the cultural diversity and various religions of the country, the gods and festivals. But we also thought about the nature, which couldn't be more different, the picturesque rice fields of Bali, the mighty cliffs of Nusa Penida, and the dangerous but still beautiful volcanic landscapes on Java. We thought about the experiences, the many impressions, the many tours and wonderful moments that we will associate with Indonesia for the rest of our lives. In the airplane, we thought about all of it, and we will remember for a long time. Thanks for watching. See you on the next trip.